top officials at the DOJ wrapping up something else that was very rare, a meeting with the key accomplice to Jeffrey Epstein down in Florida here. What exactly the Justice Department is trying to learn from Ghislaine Maxwell and her attorneys down in Florida, that is TBD. But her lawyer does say she answered all the government's questions. Here's the thing. She's not exactly a reliable source. Okay, Maxwell is serving 20 years in federal prison for recruiting and grooming teenage girls to be sexually abused by Epstein. And she's been accused by the feds of lying under oath about the sex crimes she and Epstein committed together. So the sit down, very unusual, very unusual. Number two at the DOJ is there. It comes as the White House is trying to get grand jury transcripts in at least one of the cases against Epstein released to the public. A saga getting a lot of attention in Washington and beyond it, too. You've got this House committee now saying it'll subpoena the DOJ to try to force the release of these files, and a House Democrat now demanding that happen in the next 30 days. So basically setting the clock.
Here are 5 shady things you probably didn't know about the 2008 sweetheart deal that helped Epstein evade justice. This is all based on CNN reporting, court documents, and the book Perversion of Justice, written by Julie K. Brown, a Miami Herald reporter who extensively covered the case. 1. When law enforcement officers showed up to Epstein's Florida mansion in 2005, there were signs he had been tipped off they were coming. Brown reports 6 computer hard drives had been ripped out of the wall, leaving only dangling wires behind. And surveillance cameras had been disconnected. That's according to the detective who conducted the search. 2. The detective in charge of the case had more than a dozen victims willing to testify. The grand jury heard testimony that Epstein had raped multiple teenage girls. But the U.S. attorney in Florida gave Epstein a lenient plea deal, charging him with only 2 counts of solicitation. And instead of what could have been life in prison, he served 13 months, much of which was on work release. 3. The victims were not told about the plea deal, despite a law requiring them to be notified. According to Brown's book, federal prosecutors had claimed they didn't have to tell the victims because it was a state plea, not a federal one. 4. The judge, who was assigned to the case for more than a year and had a history of criticizing lenient plea deals, was absent, suspiciously, on the day the plea deal was approved. That's right. Brown details in her book that a retired senior judge filled in that day, what she calls one of the most enduring mysteries of the case. 5. The only victim who testified before the state grand jury was 14 years old at the time of the assault. But in the plea deal, they used a victim who was 17 years old. The 14-year-old's lawyer told Brown he was caught off guard when his client wasn't in the plea. And that change meant that Epstein would not have to register in the future as a sex offender.